Hey kiddos! So today I am going to show you how to write answers on paper, essentially, right? Lined paper, because not all of you have access to a fancy printer, right? To be able to print off PDFs if we provide them for you guys, right? So that means you're going to have to utilize your own paper. So just want to show you what it should look like, right? But before we get into that, first I'm going to start off with talking about steps to solve for a variable. So notice this is not anything brand new. Okay, this is not really geometry. I figured it was a good idea to start you guys off a little slow since we're still trying to learn the whole Schoology system, right? So hopefully this is something you already understand how to do, and if you don't, it's all gravy, right? Because you're about to relearn right now. So first thing you need to look for is distribution, right? Remember the dead giveaway sometimes for distribution is if you see those parentheses with some sort of number being out in front of it. It's kind of our indicator that it's going to be a distribution situation happening, right? When we distribute, we take that number on the outside and we multiply it to everything that's on the inside of our parentheses. Once we've done or dealt with distribution, if we have it, then we're going to look to see if we need to combine any like terms. Now remember, this means that we can mix apples with apples, oranges with oranges, right? Okay, you can't mix anything else. So for example, if I had x plus y plus x, right? Notice I have an x and an x. I got two variables that are the same, which means we can combine them. So when I add 1x plus 1x, we end up with 2x. And then don't forget about the y. The y is still there, right? Still very present, but it's just going to be by itself on its own, okay? So that's combining like terms. Once you've done that, right, if you have it, then you're going to look to see if the same variable is on both sides of the equation. And if that is true, then you have to unite them first, okay? Now remember, when we move across an equal sign, okay, when you move across an equal sign, you have to do so by doing the opposite. So in other words, if it's positive on this side, yes, then that means in order to move it to the other side, I would have to make it a negative, right? So I basically would have to subtract whatever that number is. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I do to the other side, right? So that's that concept there. Next would be to basically get the variable by itself, right? You want to isolate it. You want it to be all alone. And once you've done that, you're then going to divide by the number with the variable, if there's a number with the variable, okay? That will typically be your last step. So those are our steps. Let us go ahead and start. First problem. So first thing that you need to do in learning how to write is start off with the problem itself, right? So problem number 1, notice I have written down 9 equals x plus 6. All right, cool beans, now we're starting to solve. First thing, do I notice any distribution? Nah. Next, combine like terms. Do I see more than one of the same variable? Nope. So I'm going to my next part is where I need to isolate this variable, right? So I'm going to draw a box around it. That's the letter I need to get by itself. I notice there's a plus 6 next to it, which means I got to move the plus 6 to the other side. Again, if I'm going to move across an equals, that means I'm doing the opposite. So I'm going to subtract 6. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Hopefully you guys are taking note of how I'm writing this. So notice I took the next line. I'm using 2 lines, by the way, because it's really hard for me to write in that little bitty space, okay? But you should be writing steps on each line, all right? So minus 6, then I got some math to do here, yes? So what is 9 minus 6? 3. Bring down that equal sign. Bring down that x. And notice here's how you know you did it right, because plus 6 minus 6 cancels out to a goose egg, right? That's 0. Now notice here our answer, our x is already by itself, right? There's no number with it, well, understood to be 1, which is what we want. So our answer then is x equals 3. And I'm going to appreciate it if you guys do some sort of box or circling your answer once you get to it. All right, let's try another. Notice I cheated here because I typed it up, right? So I decided to type this one out, but notice I'm still going to do the same steps as before. Notice I don't see any distribution. I don't see any need for combining like terms, so I'm going to go straight into solving for x. So I'm going to put a box around that negative 6x because that's my variable I'm solving for. I notice there's a plus 6 next to it. I'm going to see if I could try and write small minus 6 because it's positive 6. So I'm going to do the opposite to move it to the other side, and I'm going to put minus 6. All right, so in doing so, we end up with bringing down that minus 6x, didn't do anything to it. Notice that plus 6 minus 6 canceled out, bring down our equal sign. Negative 36 minus 6, right? Negative 36 minus 6. That is going to give us a negative answer of 42. So negative 42. Now you'll notice your x is not by itself yet. So I have this extra step to do of dividing both sides, because again, what I do to one side, I do to the other, by the number that's with x, which is negative 6. So when I do that, negative 6 divided by negative 6 is going to be 1, but I don't have to write the 1 in front of the x because it's understood to be there. But now I got 42, or I should say negative 42, divided by negative 6. And negative divided by negative gives me a positive answer of 7. That is our answer, so then I'll box it. Notice, again, guys, every step I do, and I show all my work, okay? Every step goes on a line. So please make sure you do that. I want it to be organized. All right, here we go. Next, there's no distribution here because I don't see any parentheses, right? But I do notice that I have an x here and an x here, which tells me we're doing step 2 of those rules, right? We are combining like terms. So remember, it's understood if there's no number in front of a variable to be the number 1, okay? So 1x plus 1x gives us 2x. Then we're going to bring down the plus 4. We're not changing that. Equals 0. Okay, so all we did right now is just combine our two variables together. We combined our like terms. Now we're going into solving. So I'm going to put a box around that 2x because that's what I'm solving for. That's my variable I'm trying to get by itself. I notice there's a plus 4 next to it, so I'm going to get rid of it by doing the opposite, which is subtracting 4. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Again, make sure you're writing all of your steps on a line. So then I'm going to bring down my box, which is the 2x, right? What happens here with the plus 4 minus 4? Yeah, I hear you. Cancels out. Goose egg, right? Equals, be careful, 0 minus 4. Negative 4. Okay? Now our last step here is going to be to, got to be divide because we got a 2 with the variable x and we got to get rid of it by dividing. Now remember, the reason why we're dividing is because this is 2x, which is 2 times x, and the opposite of multiplying is to, divide. So when we do that, 2 divided by 2 is uno, which we don't have to write because we understand that 1 is in front of that x anyways, equals negative 4 divided by 2 is going to be a negative answer of 2. Once you have your answer, please draw a pretty little box around it, circle or something, so I can easily identify that you got that answer, or that is your answer. All right, we're going to keep rolling. Oh, man. Notice this time I see we have x's on both sides of the equal sign. So the key here is that we have to unite them together first. Now, technically, it doesn't matter which one you decide to move, right? Whether it be the negative 4x or the positive 4x. Doesn't matter, okay? Whatever your preference, we're going to still, if we do this right, get the same answer. So I'm going to move that negative 4x. Now, because I'm moving across in equals, okay, this is different from just combining like terms. I'm moving across in equals, which means in order to move this, I have to do so by doing the, you said it, the opposite. So I'm going to add 4x to both sides. Now notice on the right-hand side of my equals, I placed that positive 4x underneath the 4x. Why didn't I write it underneath the 91? No duh, right? Because this is an x and it should match with the x. Notice, again, it's kind of like that combine like terms concept. This 4x couldn't combine with the 91, so it wouldn't make sense for me to write it underneath it. So that's why I wrote it underneath the 4x. So now we can go ahead and simplify what we get here. Very organized, okay? Don't mind my sloppy handwriting-ish. Okay, so those canceled out. We're going to bring down the -5, bring down the equals, and then we'll have to add this, right? What is 4x plus 4x? Yep, 8x, and then bring down that plus 91. All right, next step here, we're trying to get x by itself now, so here's my pretty little box around it because that's the variable that we are solving for. Notice there's the plus 91 next to it. So to get rid of that plus 91, because we're going to move across the equals, we're going to subtract 91 to both sides. Subtract 91. So, -5 minus 91 is -96. Bring down our equals, bring down that 8x. So -96 equals 8x is what we get right now because that canceled out. Last step, I got a number with the variable, and to get rid of it, we have to do division, right? We're going to divide both sides by 8. And when we do that, okay, that canceled out and gave us x equals the -96 divided by +8 is going to result in -12. Now, me personally, I don't like for my x to be on the right-hand side and my answer to be on the left-hand side. So I am particular, and I'm not going to mark you wrong if you leave it that way because it's a preference thing, but I like to rewrite it in this order, okay? So x equals -12 is our answer. Moving on, last problem. Snap. I thought we weren't going to have no distribution problems, but guess what? We sure do. How do I know it's distribution? Because I see these bad boys right here, which are parentheses, and a number out in front of it, which means we got to multiply, right? So -6 times 2x, right, is -12x. Next, we got -6. I'm going to draw a little arrow so you guys see what I'm doing. -6 now times 9. Which is going to be -54. Then we bring the rest of the problem down. Equals -198. All right, from here, looking to see, do we have any combined like terms? Nope. Do we have variables on both sides? Nope. So it looks like we're going straight into isolating this variable here, right? We're trying to get x by itself. So question is, how are we going to move that -54 to the other side? You're right. We're going to add 54 to both sides. Because I understand what I do to one side, got to do to the other side. So in doing so, let's see what we get. We're going to bring down that -12x. Again, make sure as you're writing this that you are using every line very organized, okay? That canceled out, which is what we wanted, equals. Now, question here is, what is -198 plus 54 going to equal? Well, I know the answer is still going to be negative, and it'll be 144. Bam. One more step, last step. Notice we're going to have to divide both sides by that -12. And when we do so, we divide both sides by -12 here, right? -12 divided by -12 gives me 1, which is what you want. X equals 144 divided by a -144 divided by -12 is going to end up being a positive answer because negative divided by negative is a positive 12. And that is solving for a variable in a nutshell. Key here, remember, was to make sure that you understood that you should have these things written out on each line. Very organized, okay? Maybe a little sloppy handwriting, okay? But because it's, mind you, difficult to write on this. But the organization is what we are looking for. Awesome sauce.